Steeler fans. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you tonight. This is the Scho Bro Show. I'm a little bit backwards tonight. It's 9:09, just after 9 o'clock. It's
the
been
one after 9:09.
Oh. Okay. That's all right. But where else would you rather be? And with me, as always, except when he's not, which isn't very often anymore, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Let's go ahead and just let you know. It's done. It's over with. But let's go ahead and just nice little breathe in because we're still breathing. Just you know,
it's been almost a week.
Deep breath yet. we're almost ready to start taking the deep breath and really breathe it in.
Yeah.
Still breathing in that sweet smell of victory. And you know what? We're going to talk about that sweet smell that we had more in the second half of the show.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. And I've got to set that up because I'm saying we're going to talk about Thursday's game. We're not going to break it down as much as everything else because it's been so long. But Rich and I were actually together on Saturday. Didn't talk about the game. We specifically would not talk about the game so we could do it here on this show. But we have other stuff to talk about first. Lots and lots of other things. We've got 53-man roster. We've got interesting releases. We've got just various things going on that we're going to trades. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, we've got two different items of business that we're going to be doing during this show. We're going to spread them out. So we're going to talk about one now, and we're going to talk about the other one later. So I'll talk about the other one later. Rich, why don't you talk about our first contest that we want to talk about? You all have heard about this one if you've listened to any other shows. So, Rich, what's going on with the FFSN giveaway?
All right. Attention sports fans. Are you a fan of an NFL team? Would you love to attend your favorite team's week one game? I know I would love to go and attend at Acrisure Stadium on week one. Well, you're in luck. All right. Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to the week one NFL game of your choice, worth up to $5,000. The rules to enter are simple. Step 1, go to contest.fansfirstsports.com. Fill out the appropriate information. Step 2, find us on Facebook and like our page. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yep. That's it.
Put it in. You're entered. All right. Again, that's the chance to win 4 free tickets to any week one NFL game. Your choice. So, although we all know where you all better be choosing.
We all know where you all better go. But I'll tell you what, if you don't friends.
If you don't choose that, the Scho Bros themselves are coming after you. So
I know it would lower your chances, but if you have friends or something that are fans of another team, have them enter the contest for them to do that. Maybe they'll take you to a game, even if it's not the Steelers. Maybe you can convince them to go to the Steelers game, wherever it is. I know for everyone that's not always the easiest thing to do geographically to watch your team, but my goodness, I would take, even as someone who covers the Steelers, I would take free tickets to a convenient game of my choice, even if it wasn't the Steelers. It's just something good to do. Make sure you get in on that. We have that scrolling across the bottom of the screen for those of you watching.
Contest ends September 4th.
Yeah, there we go. September 4th. Got to be signed up by September 4th.
Yep. So get into it.
Got to do it. Got to do it.
Do it. Get your choice of tickets. Enter. Get your chance to win.
Yeah.
Do it.
Got to do it. And here's the thing. Let's say you win. Let's say you do this contest and you win. And let's say, I don't know, you live somewhere like Nebraska and you're like, you know what? I just can't do it. You know what? I'm pretty sure other people in our community would volunteer to fill your seats for you. Go enter. There's no harm in entering.
I'd volunteer to help get them flown in here to take me with them.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd go. I'd go with you. There you go. I'll tell you, if you win the 4 tickets and you want me to go, I'll go. I'll go.
We're both going.
Well, I wasn't going to speak for you. Yeah, because I don't have tickets to this game. So yes, I would. You could take me up on that. If you win one of them, you say, "Hey, Dave, come with me." Now, problem is, as big as I am, I might need 2 tickets just for myself.
No.
That's
Not
just
with the
kidding,
choice.
just
Not
kidding.
with the choice of seats you probably get to pick from.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah. So, let's dive into this, Rich. So that's some other Steelers business. Before we get into the full 53-man cut down, let's talk trades. We're not going to talk about potential trades. We'll talk about that later. Let's kind of split this up and talk about what has happened. Then we'll talk about with the 53-man roster and everything, what we think is still to happen and everything else. Oh, man. Kathy Forrid says, after I might just take the Scho wives. Ooh, wow. That's
my wife would go.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my wife would go. So.
Oh my goodness. The problem is, you know what? I'd make it happen. My daughter is away that weekend and has to be picked up during like 3:00. I'm like, well, I said to my wife, have fun with that. I'm not going to pick her up. That's during the Steelers game. But we would make other arrangements.
That's when you get on the phone and call your older sister and be like, hey.
Yeah, there you go. Here we have a question. I'm going to mess up this name. Is that Shaner Mayhem Smith? I don't know. Says, could you get cheap seats and a burger and fries? For what they cost? Hey, I admit, I find last year was the first time I bought food at the stadium, maybe ever, for the Steelers. Maybe ever. I don't know if you remember this. You were with me. You and Kyle were with Gabriel and I.
Yeah, what did you buy? Popcorn?
We bought the popcorn container that was a Steelers container, and you got free refills. I'm like, that's like what you would pay at the movie theater. I'm down for that. Let's do it. And that's like the first thing I bought at the stadium in a long time. But Rich, let's talk trades. Okay, Sunday night. It was later on Sunday night.
Yeah,
it was like 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday night.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. Give me a second. I can probably tell you exactly.
And the Steelers, and the report comes out. And the thing is, the Steelers still announced it that night. I thought for sure I'd have to wait till Monday. I mean, it might have been 7:30 when they announced it. It was reported probably earlier than that. It was that the Steelers traded Kevin Dotson to the Los Angeles Rams. Next year, they trade up from the 5th round to the 4th round. And in the following draft, they trade up from the 6th round to the 5th round. So they don't gain any picks, but they move up around in 2 different drafts.
Yeah.
What do you think about the trade overall, including the draft picks or the whole idea of moving on from Kevin Dotson?
I'm not surprised the Steelers made the choice to move on from Kevin Dotson. He wasn't really fitting the new scheme that they've been working on. He's not really an outside zone blocker. He's more of a straight ahead bulldozer kind of, run blocker. And we know there's been some question. We've heard there's been question on his, how is that? And try to be just his work ethic. How much time is he really willing to put in? Especially when I think about first thing I think of is another guy this year who really put in the time and is really showing that he did. And that would be Dan Moore Jr.
Dan Moore Jr., yeah.
Right. You just never felt that Kevin Dotson's really tried to do a whole lot extra to improve himself on the field. I like the deal, believe it or not. Just moving up around, because honestly, you think about, 1 year you're just going 5-4. Well, look at what the Steelers have been able to pull off in 4th rounds here. Mm-hmm. So, you want to think back to it. How about Dan Moore Jr.? How about Nick Herbig?
Yeah.
How about, so it's like, you know what? I'll take the chance to move up and look for those types or those caliber of players in the draft. Not a problem.
Yeah. For me, when it came to Kevin,
it felt like the Steelers were ready to move on from him anyway. So the fact that they were able to make a trade and get something in return, fantastic.
I mean, he only had 1 year left. He went from being a starter, played every snap last year, to this. The first question was, did the Steelers replace him when they signed Nate Herbig? And then they signed Isaac Seumalo. It was like They didn't just pop one guy ahead of him on the depth chart. They popped two. And Kevin Dotson, I said it before when this happened, he at times was the Steelers' best offensive lineman last year. And he at times was by far their worst.
Yep.
He was just so inconsistent. We think about the play where we assume it was him, where they came through, basically got Kenny Pickett killed against the Ravens. He stepped out of that hit only to go right into another one, and then he's concussed and out for the game. There were those kind of plays, but there were just sometimes you just saw him maul people as well. So, and with the Steelers wanting to run the outside zone, he didn't seem like an outside zone type blocker. So that was one of the things with Kevin Dotson. I said it a while ago, that just to remind people that if Kevin Dotson wasn't going to be your starter, it's going to be hard to even give him a helmet. That I said I wouldn't have been shocked if Dotson was the guy that made the team and didn't get a helmet because of the lack of position versatility that you like to have in your reserve players. Because I'll tell you right now, based on who we believe the starting five is from the preseason, they haven't said anything yet. I'm assuming that to start the season, Broderick Jones is not going to be the starter. Broderick Jones right now plays one position, left tackle. That's one of your three reserve offensive linemen. You can't afford to have a second reserve offensive lineman only play, even though it's both guard positions, only guard. You've already taken that up with one of your three. You need the other two to really be able to fill in multiple spots. So it was going to be tough to give him a helmet, in my opinion. But we'll never know that because they moved on from him. And fans, people here, you can raise your hand in the live chat. Lots of Steeler fans thought that Kevin Dotson would be a trade candidate ever since they signed Isaac Seumalo and Nate Herbig. Since after they signed both of them, people thought, oh, trade Dotson. And I didn't poo-poo on it. I just didn't think they would do it until they did, till right around cut down time. I didn't think it was going to happen before training camp because you needed to see what you had in people. Exactly. And they did exactly that. So those of you that were calling for it, you were right on.
Exactly, need to know where people's health, where everybody's health was, all of that. So
yeah, exactly. You don't want to. People are like, "Wow, they're really trading away their depth." Well, you don't want to trade away your depth until you can get through training camp in the preseason. And then the problem was, where does your depth fit? So when that trade happened, it's funny because Jeff and I recorded Let's Ride, where we were doing our 53-man roster prediction. We had kept 10 linemen because I said if they can't trade Dotson, I think they'll put him on IR because they're not going to give him a helmet because of that versatility thing. And then that because he missed the third preseason game with a shoulder, they had the perfect excuse to do it. I said maybe they'll keep 10 linemen and then bring somebody back. I thought maybe like a Miles Boykin or something that they would release and say, hey, we're signing you back. You don't have to go through waivers. We're going to sign you back. Don't go sign with anybody else. So I thought that was a possibility. And then they trade him. And then you're like, okay, don't worry about that. That, to me, then I'm thinking, well, they must have been happy with what they saw with Kendrick Green at right guard in the last game, which we'll talk about that last game later this season. But at the same time, it's kind of –
You mean later in the episode?
Oh, later in the episode. Yeah, later in the episode. Sorry.
You just can't wait to get
I just can't wait. So you get that with Kendrick Green, who played better in his third preseason game, but it shouldn't completely erase the other two. Yes, it is a more what you've done for me lately, so you want to see which way they're trending. But that was some pretty bad play for 2 weeks. I mean, when you're just constantly texting me about him doing that. But then he turned around and said, well, you know what? Maybe if it's just a backup, blah, blah, blah. I was kind of convincing myself it was okay for Kendrick Green to be on the team because it seemed like the writing was on the wall. Bam! I did not see that one coming at all after trading Dotson. If you would have told me the Steelers were going to trade both Kendrick Green and Kevin Dotson, after the third preseason game and before week 1, I would have bet. Let's say I just watched Oppenheimer the other day. I would have bet 1 month's salary against $10, which was something from there.
Hey, is this true?
Okay.
Have you crunched that yet?
Yeah, I already put the article out.
Okay.
It's a little bit tricky because he was traded before they cut down to 53. So technically it was still a top 51 thing. So you're talking about you slid out 2.7, you slid in $940K. It ultimately, after displacement, it was $1.803 million. But that kind of all goes away when you get to 53 players. Because, but with all that, if he'd have been traded,
well, you say it goes away, but technically you still save it.
Yeah. So exactly, if you wanted to look at it as the 1.8 that they got immediately, or if you want to look at it as the 2.7, it was 2.743 is what his base salary was, and it's only 160 some thousand in dead money, which is pretty good. Now I haven't looked at the numbers for Kendrick Green. That one is going to take some dead money because he had 2 more years left on his contract with the signing bonus. But really, I don't think any Steelers fans are really worried about that right now, in all honesty. But so what were your thoughts on the trade for Green?
Green traded because another Green is going to hit the IR. So
was that Kenyon Carry-On, whatever it is, that was drafted in the first round by Houston last year? Yeah, their offensive line is like dealing with massive injuries.
So they needed somebody.
Yeah.
And another one of those where you wonder, was he maybe in the Steelers' plans, but not so much in their plans, that when the con artist got a call and said, hey, we'll give you a 6 for him, he was like, done.
Well, and it really goes to show, you would have thought this was crazy, but before training camp, did either one of us have, as one of those sleepers to make the team, did either one of us have Dylan Cook? No. Now, we're talking about Dylan Cook at 9:25 on Tuesday night. For all we know, the Steelers make another move with the offensive line, and he ends up getting waived and hopefully put on the practice squad. Or he might be with the Steelers for 17 games. We don't know at this time.
Right.
But they had to care enough about him in order to bother keeping him. Because if they wanted to go out and get another offensive lineman, they just as easily could have kept 8 for now. But they chose him. They chose to keep 9. And I think they really do see something with him that they like. Right after the draft, my first 53-man roster projection, I had Spencer Anderson because I said, I want to see that he plays well. I have hope that they drafted a guy that's going to come out and play well. And then before they got to training camp, I took him off. And then once they got to training camp and we're playing, I put him back on because he did, which was really, really good. I know Shannon White really liked him a lot too when he dove into his film and everything.
Here's what I liked about Spencer Anderson, and this is why I thought he did a nice job in training camp. Did he totally tear it up?
Probably not.
No, not really tear it up, but what he showed was solid play at multiple positions on the line.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Kelvin Beachum comparison. I really do.
Not good play at one position on the line and mediocre, we could throw him in there in emergency and other spots on the line. No. Solid all the way across.
Yeah.
Right? That, to me, just showed that this guy really has some ability. Being able to hop those different positions and there not really be any big drop-off at any of them.
Yeah.
To me, as soon as you saw that he could move positions without a whole lot of issue, his rookie season in the NFL, it's like, yeah, we can't try to get this.
You'd be a fool to not hold on to that.
Correct, because if we try to get into the practice squad, somebody's coming to get it.
I mean, think about it. If a tackle goes down, it's Broderick Jones going in. If anyone on the interior goes down, it's Nate Herbig going in. You're talking about the 3rd and 4th guys deep. So I know some people were concerned because, there's not a lot of proven. And yes, I don't expect the Steelers to make it through the season where everyone starts every game and plays almost every snap. I don't. But at the same time, do you think they're going to have to go more than 3 deep? It's possible.
It's possible.
But you hope you don't have to, but they have players. And the thing is, are you going to have to do it right away? Because these are young players that I know Dylan Cook had a year on the practice squad in Tampa last year. I mean, he was on and off, but mostly on. These are players that even you can develop and then be more confident with them as the season goes on. So unless you're talking about week 2 or week 3 having to go to your 3rd and 4th offensive linemen, if that's the case, you have other problems more, than saying, are they going to be spectacular?
Right.
So really, really like that. So that's the trades. So goodbye, Kendrick Green. We hardly knew ye. I mean, you got thrown into the mix year 1, didn't even dress year 2. It was a smart move. I mean, the fact that the Steelers gained a draft pick, even if it's not this year, I thought was pretty good.
Yep.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take our break so we don't have to again, and get this done. So that way we can really talk about the 53-man roster and then get to this game. So if you're with us here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, we'll be back in a couple seconds. If you're on the audio, be back right after these messages. All right, Steelers fans, here we go. Let's finish talking about the rest of this roster. Okay, so you have cut downs. We talked about the offensive line already when it came to cut downs. Let's tackle the elephant in the room. You doing good, Rich?
Oh no, I'm terrible, Dave. It's awful.
Yeah,
I hate to sit here and talk about the Steelers cutting down to a 53-man roster.
Let's knock out the
poke out
my
eye with a pen here or something.
Yeah.
So
they kept 2 punters.
Yep.
Okay, we have to address it.
There's a couple different ways this could go.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the one that I'm hearing out there from everybody is they're going to trade one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that is very much a possibility. And I will believe that was exactly what they had in mind when it happens. But don't think also that there's two other things that could go on here. Okay. One, could Big Press have an issue going on?
Someone brought that up in the comments
and potentially need to hit the IR, but the Steelers don't want to expose him to waivers, so they keep them both. Yeah. Okay, knowing that then they let go of someone like Zach Gentry, and they said, "Hey, Gent, hold on to your playbook.
Yeah,
we're going to give you.
We got to make a move." Right. That's the possibility. Okay. I'd be really surprised that nobody would have that reported. Yeah.
There's one other possibility.
Okay,
that I'm guessing a lot of people potentially haven't thought about. Okay. The Steelers know that between now and the start of the season, they're going to make another move.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And who says that the punting position has been decided yet?
That they just wanted extra time to decide when they go to make another move between now and then. No, I mean that's
even with that, is that could that be sending the message to Presley Hart? Hey, we're not done with this yet. This isn't because the past couple of years they bring somebody in and they're going at cut down day. Questions answered, everybody knows. Is it also sending the message? Hey, no, we haven't made up our mind here on this yet.
Yep.
And the Steelers may know that they're thinking about going and get somebody that's been cut off another team, and went ahead and held the 2 punters until and make a move later
because they know they're going to make a move later. Okay, I could see that. I could see that. So I think that's probably slightly more likely than even the injury thing, just because we haven't heard anything.
Correct.
I still think the overwhelming one is this is what I said on the Breaking News podcast. If I remember, I think I said it when we recorded it, not to Jeff afterwards. That I would not be shocked if the Steelers were in negotiations with someone, let's say like maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, since they're a team that currently has 0 punters on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, that's bad. The New England Patriots have 1 quarterback on their roster right now. That's kind of what's happening in this first 24 hours with stuff, is the way sometimes these things work. But they could say, you know what? The Eagles could say, hey, you want something for this guy? No. We'll just wait it out. We'll pick him up on the waiver wire. And the Steelers could be like,
no, you won't.
They won't. Now, my only thing is that's kind of tough on your guy. I understand if you want to get something back for him, but the reason that's tough on the player is, so in other words, the Eagles bluff. It might not be the Eagles. I'm just using them as an example. The Steelers called that bluff. What if the Eagles call the called bluff and say, all right, we're picking up Corliss Waitman. He got cut. Or somebody else, say, nope.
Then the Steelers can always make the decision and say,
sorry.
Hey, Gent, come on, bring your book. Come on back.
Yeah.
It's it's hard to tell what Omar Khan and Coach Tomlin have up their sleeve on this one.
Yeah.
They could really hit us with something very stranger off the wall because of it, because they already have by having 2 punters on the roster. How it plays out, you know what? I lots of things I can predict, but I won't be surprised if it's not even something like that and something else, because Omar Khan has already showed his abilities, and Coach Tomlin working with him, their abilities to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And not do everything the way everybody does it.
Sometime it could be as early as, this time tomorrow, or when we're talking
next week.
It still might not even be known then. It could go all the way up until just before, the day before the game, that 4 p.m. Deadline. We'll find out what it is eventually. We will. Yes. But we're in this weird moment that we don't know what it is right now. Little story about this. I had the article ready to go for the Steelers 53-man roster. And the thing that stinks is when the Steelers announced that they announced who was cut, not who made it, when the Steelers PR department first put it out, before it was even on Steelers.com or anything. So I'm going through it, and I'm trying to figure stuff out as reports came out. We'll talk about the Zach Gentry thing, which is what Jeff and I predicted that about Gentry. So we'll talk about him shortly. But I'm still not convinced he's done in Pittsburgh. But it did kind of make sense. But I had everything filled in, and the only thing I could figure out after the Gentry, after this, some people thought maybe it was Nick Kwiatkowski that was going to make it as a linebacker. I still wasn't convinced at that. It wasn't going to be a 10th offensive lineman because they traded Kendrick Green. I was trying to figure out the other roster spot, and Nick Faraball put this out on Twitter. I completely agree with him. Like, this could be the Steelers keeping all 8 defensive linemen. So I had all 8 names there, seeing who had to take off. It would end up being Braden Fehoko. We'll talk about him in just a second. But I go through and saw that he got cut, took him off, and I'm trying to go down through my list and say, where am I adding a player? And what was the very last thing I come to is the specialist. I'm like, seriously, there's an extra punter? So that really held up me trying to get that article out there, because trying to figure that out. So Other cuts, Zach Gentry. Some people don't like that I said this. I got people that were calling me out. I don't want to be like, well, see, I told you so, because I'm not, like I said, 24 hours from now, Zach Gentry could be right back with the Steelers. But I would say Gentry was not safe because there's nothing that he does as a tight end that somebody else that another tight end on the Steelers roster doesn't do better. Name me one thing Zach Gentry does that another tight end doesn't do better. And then some people are like, well, what happens if you're dealing with an injury and you want a 2 tight end set for blocking? I'm like, you want to keep a spot on the 53-man roster for a second blocking tight end in the event that one of your tight ends is hurt.
Hey, We don't set our 53-man roster in our fears.
Yes.
Except in the playoffs.
Except in the playoffs, yeah. So that was my point, because they're like, well, what would they do when, for everybody has a history of concussions. I'm like, if somebody's hurt and you could get Rodney Williams onto the practice squad, it's called a practice squad elevation.
Correct.
Yeah. They're like, well, Connor Hayward, is he really a tight end? You know what? If he's your third tight end, what if someone's hurt? There's a practice squad. I can tell you right now, if the Steelers don't bring back Zach Gentry or another tight end, they're probably going to have 2 tight ends on the practice squad.
Yep.
Just because of what they'll need to do. Anywhere you look on this roster and you think the Steelers are thin, chances are they're going to take an extra one of those players in the practice squad. Because with the elevation rules, it's an extension. It really is an extension. So, but I still think the most likely candidate for someone to return to this roster is probably Zach Gentry. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say.
I would say, I keep saying Brandon. It's Braden Fehoko.
Right.
But he doesn't have 4 credited years. So I'm pretty sure he has to go through waivers. So, yeah. So I didn't have Zach Gentry the last couple of times I did my 53-man roster prediction, and some people thought it was crazy. Jeff and I had cut Fehoko because we had it between him and Adams. We thought it could be either one, and Adams does give a little bit more position flexibility. Let's see.
Please explain. There's a misconception here. Please explain it.
Someone says, I agree, George. Gentry, in my opinion, will get claimed. That is not possible because he is not on waivers.
Correct.
Zach Gentry is not on waivers.
He is currently a free agent.
He's a free agent. This isn't after the trade deadline when even veterans go on waivers. That might be what some people are confused with, which I would completely understand. That's after the trade deadline that even veterans have to go on waivers. Right now, veterans don't have to go on waivers. And Zach Gentry, I tagged Miles Boykin as another potential one to say. And at first I thought James Pierre. I'm like, no, he was a restricted free agent, so he doesn't have 4 years in. Finding those players that are on a 1-year, basically minimum deal and say, hey, we'll cut you, but we want to bring you back, and because we don't want to expose someone else to waivers, and we need to get that. We need to do this. Usually, it's to put someone on IR. I'll ask you this question, Rich.
And a lot of guys in the league that are beyond that 4 years, the vested veterans, they get it. They understand how it works. They understand the business side behind that, and they go with it.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers, if they're not going to keep 2 punters, they're going to have someone else. The question is, are they looking outside somewhere for another player? Right. You could say offensive line. You could say, because some people still aren't convinced with backup center. You could say tight end. You could say cornerback, wide receiver. You could list off, some of these are positions where the Steelers have a lot of players, and maybe you don't like the very bottom of the depth chart. That's all we're talking about right now, from most likely from players that are out there. But to me, that's why I think Zach Gentry is the number 1 candidate to come back. And Wes is like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Like, yeah, absolutely. Some people don't. So that's the difference in cutting him than cutting, let's say, Dylan Cook. Right. Because you can't cut him and then say we're going to sign you right back because he's got to go on waivers. So that's
the last part. Was it last year?
I'm going to ask you, that's my trivia.
Somebody
twice last year, 2 players started off on the 53-man roster for the Steelers. To put them on IR, they had to be there for 24 hours. Do you remember the 2 players?
Calvin Austin III was one.
Calvin Austin III was one of them. I'll give you a hint. There was one on each side of the ball.
Okay. Hold on. Who? KZ.
DeMonte KZ. Do you know which 2 players were cut and then brought back?
Oh, that's what I'm waiting to. That's what I got to.
It was one from each side of the ball.
Yeah, hold on.
And they weren't the same position as the other guys. That's my other hint.
No, one was an offensive lineman.
You are correct. They started off with 8 offensive linemen. And you probably don't remember because he's not on the team anymore, but he was dressed for the Steelers every game last year. Yeah. I'll even give you a bigger hint. He was the jumbo tight end.
Oh, yeah. And I don't even remember who it was. That's how closely I paid attention. So just tell me, because I don't know.
Trenton Scott.
That's right.
Trenton Scott.
Yeah.
And on defense, not the Hall of Fame running back, the special teams aides.
But the special teams
Marcus Allen.
Marcus Allen. That's right.
Marcus Allen.
Yep.
So those kind of things happen. So we could have people come out. Anything else about the 53-man roster? I've kind of mentioned Fehoko kind of seemed the guy that I liked him, but he didn't really show out in games.
And honestly, the day I was at training camp, he was a solid player, kind of like, he was an okay player, kind of like he was in games, but nothing that great.
The great play of Keanu Benton made Braden Fehoko expendable.
Yeah. So.
Honestly, in my opinion, that was the difference there. Gentry, we talked about Gentry. Tanner Muse, especially getting cut on Sunday or Saturday. That was Saturday.
Yeah.
No, or was he Monday?
I don't remember.
They made cuts on Saturday. He wasn't cut today. We'll say that. That was one that surprised me because I thought he had showed enough at linebacker to be a fifth linebacker in case of emergency and your special teams guy like Marcus Allen, and they didn't do it. To me, that was keeping James Pierre, Miles Boykin, Miles Killebrew.
Yep.
That was what that was.
That was we already had enough of those guys we were keeping to do that. He was the odd man out.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, the Steelers didn't bring in Quan Alexander until training camp started. So having someone like Muse made sense, but then you bring in Quan Alexander and you're like, yeah, maybe there's not room for it there. And anything else? Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
I want to see him. Get him going.
Okay. We are going to talk about a little bit of what we might see. We'll talk a little bit about the practice squad, but we have another announcement. I don't have a banner ready for this one, so I'll try to get it maybe while Rich is talking sometime here. And I'll try to put it in the comments and we'll see if it does. It's the glorious return. It's the glorious return of, once again, this time under Steel Curtain Network, it's Survivor Football. We're doing it again this year. It's through Yahoo Sports. A lot of you in the live chat that have been with us for a while, you've been involved. You sign up. It's free. You go in. It's winner take all. The way it works, you'll sign up. I'll try to get you a link. If not, the article will be at steelcurtainnetwork.com tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. There'll be a link in there. All you need is a Yahoo ID. That's all you need to do this contest. You sign up for Survivor. The first week, you pick one team to win. One game. One team, no spread, nothing. Pick them to win the game. If they win, you move on to week 2. If they lose, you're out. The only trick to that beyond that is once you pick a team once, you can't pick them again. If you pick the Steelers to beat the 49ers in week 1, and when they beat the 49ers in week 1, you move on to week 2, you can't pick the Steelers to beat the Browns because you already used the Steelers. Got to go somewhere else. So as this goes on in the season, your options get less and less. And when you get towards the end of the season, then we start making if there's still a lot of people. Well, regardless, then we get to 2 picks and things like that. Last year we had 400 and some entries because we were in 5 different leagues because we can only get 100 per league, and we finished up. I'm trying to remember when we finished up. It was towards the end. Did it go into the playoffs last year? I can't remember. One year it went to the playoffs. One year it finished early, but you get there. The question is the prize. And this is what we haven't announced until just now. I have the prize for this year's Survivor League right here with me. I'm going to show it on camera, and I'm going to see if people can actually see what it says. This is what you can win in the SCN Survivor League. Right here. It's a signed football. Wait a second. You see a Hall of Fame emblem. That should tell you something. You see that? Do you see it now?
Can you see me now?
Can you see what that says? That says Donnie Shell. That is a signed Donnie Shell Hall of Fame football. So former Steelers safety, Hall of Famer Donnie Shell signed football can be yours just by defeating everyone else.
the price is right. Oh,
Yeah, if the price is right. Okay.
we
I'm going
miss you,
to
Bob Barker.
I'm going to attempt to see if I can put the link in the chat, where all you have to do is be signed, or either after you click it, sign in, or be signed in to a Yahoo account. And it'll take you right there. The password and everything will be filled out. But I don't know if all the commenting places will actually let it show up in the comments. Sometimes they won't let websites show up. So I'm trying. We'll see. It looks like it showed up. I hope you all can click on it. If not, just make sure you go to steelcurtainnetwork.com tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. There will, if you can't click on the link, we also have an ID number and a password. I can tell you right now that number is not in front of me. Here we go. That number is, if you want to go into Yahoo Survival Football, the group ID is 16891, and the group password is all lowercase, all one word, Steel Curtain. So that's open to anybody. We
And
just
it's
ask.
nice, and I will say, nice to see Daniel J already in there and has already made his pick.
Oh, did he? All right. I've already made my pick. I'm in there. So
I haven't made my pick yet, but I'm in there now. Fine.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so we were told that link is there on YouTube. You can click on that. You can go right in there. The only thing that we ask is that you don't enter multiple times with the same Yahoo ID, even if we get in other leagues. If we find the same ID entered multiple times, you'll be disqualified. It's even employees. You're going up against SCNers there. Everyone's eligible. The only other thing is if you're not 18 years old and you win, we must give the prize to a parent or guardian. That's it. So there, we did that. Oh, Rich, we still got a lot to talk about. We're running late on time. Practice squad. Do you have any guys that you think are pretty good candidates for the Steelers practice squad that were
I think they're
cut?
Good candidates if they clear waivers.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I mean, gee whiz, who wouldn't like Rodney Williams there?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, there's plenty of guys, honestly, when you really stop and think about it, could be there. But I also expect to see the Steelers
take a couple outside guys.
I was going to say, I also expect to see the Steelers take a number of guys who are not currently on the team.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I thought, hey, when they cut everything down, the Steelers had 70 players going into Monday after they made their cuts for Monday's practice. Well, when you talk about the 53-man roster, 60-man practice squad, that's 69 players. So in other words, the Steelers were having practice. Yes, I am, if I can find it, because that seems like I never can.
We're talking about practice.
Yeah, I'm talking about practice. When they had practice yesterday, they basically had what they would have in numbers-wise in a regular practice, because they had 17 extra players, but one of them was a punter. I thought it was odd that they still had two punters yesterday, and they still have two punters now. For those people that think maybe it's about putting the punter on the practice squad, I've seen a couple media guys say that. Rich, I think that's crazy. Unless your punter is hurt and you're worried about something, I don't see the point of keeping one on there at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah, I don't either.
So, yeah.
Oh, Sherry brings up a good one. Valaday. Would like to see him.
I'd like to see him there. I would like to see both Quincy Roche and David Prowse. And if not, I think it's Toby and Dukeway. If one of those get claimed, I think they could add two of those three. Right. Some people are like Kenny Robinson. I think that's a possibility. But when you look at it, they let him go a day early and they kept Trenton Thompson another day. I think Thompson was ahead of him. But I think Trey Norwood is prime candidate. Was injured so much during the preseason. I don't know if someone will pick him up for the 53. I think he's a prime candidate for the practice squad. Those are some of our favorites. Valaday, Rodney Williams, Dez Fitzpatrick. I really want to see him get to the practice squad for the Steelers at wide receiver. offensive line, probably only Ryan McCullum's the one that really pops to mind. You know who I'd really like to see? I'd see him pick up somebody that was released from another team on the practice squad. Give me Joey Fisher.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. He was, and he played well for the 49ers in the preseason. He was like the score wise, he was like their fourth best offensive lineman. So now I don't know at what point of the games he was playing because I don't watch other teams' preseason games. But that would be smart. Add someone from the 49ers to the practice squad since you play him in week 1. Come on, Steelers, make that happen. And that's a position that you could use that for. Defensive line, I'd love to be Fehoko, but we'll see how that plays out. I think, who was the other one that they've released today? Was it Manny Jones? Was that the other one that was still around? They have some other options at defensive line. Inside linebacker, you're really only looking at probably either if Muser Kwiatkowski wants to stick around. I hope I'm not naming too many. You can only have 6 non-typical practice squad eligible players on there. I might have named too many already. Like Trey Norwood would count towards that 6. Kwiatkowski would. Guys like Valladay and Rodney Williams wouldn't. So because they don't have a year in the NFL. So we'll see. One last question before we talk a little bit about last week's game. Do you see the Steelers? What do you think would be the most likely move if the Steelers added another player to the 53-man roster outside of someone who was with them during the preseason, like not a Zach Gentry or something like that? If they bring in somebody from the outside, what do you think would be the most likely position? Not player, unless you really had someone in mind. I'm thinking more position.
This is what makes it so difficult, because I look at the roster and I don't see a glaring need. And because I don't see a glaring need, I think it leaves it way more wide open.
I agree.
You'd think you'd right off the bat say, well, offensive lineman. Then you're like, well, they might be okay with
they really look at those 2 young guys, then roll with them.
You think, well, wide receiver, but maybe.
I don't. No one's above an upgrade at the bottom of the depth chart. But the question is it really worth the upgrade?
That's what it's going to boil down to.
Yeah,
and that's what I don't know enough about guys that are out there that have been cut by other teams, because I'm like you, I don't watch other teams in the preseason. So I really don't know. It's one of those that if it happens, it's where I'm going to trust that the front office knew that they were getting an upgrade.
I mean, I would say most likely, as much as I've always liked James Pierre ever since, making the roster as an undrafted free agent in 2020 with no preseason games, that was impressive. But he didn't look good this preseason. So if the Steelers decided they wanted to upgrade their last outside cornerback on the roster, I could see them doing that.
Right. Exactly.
But I don't think they have to do it within. I would be fine. I'd be fine if they don't do anything from outside. I'm not saying that they shouldn't look at it. Absolutely they should. But if it ends up not working out, I'm fine with it.
Yep.
All right. So, Rich, we've got a few minutes here. Last Thursday, we're watching the game. Overall thoughts on that one. I know it's exciting because now we're talking about preseason football. When you get to that 53-man roster, it's full steam ahead to week 1.
Yep.
But we haven't had a chance to talk about it. Anything in particular you want to say jumped out from that?
A few things. First of all, I mean, you just have to acknowledge the first team offense of 5 possessions and 5 touchdowns in the preseason.
Oh, of course.
I mean, you just have to. They just were all business. They went out, as Coach Tom would say, they all did their job, and it showed.
Yeah.
It showed on the field that they had all just been doing the work and then doing their jobs, and they looked very good. Okay. And honestly, you can pretty much say the same about the first string defense. Honestly, in a game against Atlanta, you can pretty much just say the defense.
Yeah.
Because they pitched a shutout.
Yep. And even when Atlanta got to the red zone, what'd they do? Forced the
Tip the
turnover.
pass, forced turnover.
Oh no, it was wrong game. It was
not the tip pass. That was the fumble.
Yeah,
Strip.
yeah. That was the Joey Porter Jr. has him low. Mark Robinson knocks the ball out.
No spot. Yep.
Fumble. Yep. That was nice. I really wish that the other kicker wouldn't have missed the field goal, so it would be 27 points for every game. And they could have kicked another field goal at the end, went for it on 4th and 11, because really, did you need 3 more points, or did you want the experience of going for it on 4th down?
Exactly.
So I was fine with that there.
Yep.
I actually went as far to say, you realize there was more of a definite definition of. Is that word definite definition? Precise definition
There you go.
of first team offense versus second team offense. Not just quarterback, but they changed so many different things. There was a few things that stuck around. Like even Dan Moore Jr. moved to the right side, some things like that. And some of the receivers that were number 4 receivers with the first unit were number 1 or 2 receivers with the second unit. Some of those things were the same. And the tight ends, because you didn't have enough of them. But for the defense, there was really no definitive first teams out there, first teams not out there. I mean, the first game, half of them weren't there at all.
They played what I thought the defense did was played their regular rotation defensively.
Yeah.
Like the defense treated that similar to how they would treat a regular season game.
Yeah, and the thing is, it does make it hard to say exactly which drives were the first team defense. Because I could make the argument that the true first team defense drives didn't give up a first down in the preseason.
Yeah.
But it's not as definitive because of the players being in and out. But, I mean, regardless, they didn't give up a first down the first quarter. They had them to -2 yards. So you're like, oh, well, the Falcons didn't play their starters. Yeah, they didn't. But what do you do when another team doesn't play their starters? You don't want to just go out there and succeed.
Yeah,
you want to go out there and dominate. You got to dominate. And they dominated. Sorry, I had to speak down a little bit Yinzerish. They dominated. Yeah.
Dominated.
Yeah. It's funny. Sherry Richards says,
yep.
She says Mark Robinson's looking better in coverage. Which
very much better.
But you know what's crazy? I've really been ripping up the PFF scores this preseason because Mark Robinson was the number 1 player, not linebacker, number 1 player of the Steelers in coverage score in week 2. And in week 3, he was dead last. They had him with a terrible coverage score. Okay. Here was one. Jaylen Warren got knocked out. Jaylen Warren still finished the number 1 running back ranked overall for the whole preseason for the Steelers. I had that in an article today. 3 players for the Steelers on PFF were number 1 at their position.
Not just for the Steelers.
No, in the NFL.
For the NFL.
Kenny Pickett was the number 1 quarterback in the NFL in the preseason. Jaylen Warren was the number 1 running back in the NFL for the preseason. And Connor Hayward was the number 1 tight end for the NFL in the preseason. Based on the PFF scores, just PFF. But Jaylen Warren could have had an even higher score. But his 3rd week got knocked down because he got knocked down. They gave him I think it was a 3.1 pass blocking score. He pass blocked on 1 play. The safety was blitzing. Warren comes up, pops him, knocks him back off his feet, and the guy then goes to the inside to then get around him, doesn't get to Kenny Pickett in time to even be registered as a pressure. And this is when Kenny Pickett's throwing a 35-yard pass down the field to George Pickens. So it's not like he was throwing some quick slant or something like that. It was on a longer pass play. And they called that a 3.1 out of 100. I don't get it. But because I thought that was a nice pick. I mean, if you can take a blitzer and knock him off his line, yeah.
I'll go full blown Yinzer.
All right, go Yinzer.
That's because the guy there keep that score was taking a big old sip of his Iron City instead of watching the play.
Yeah, instead of watching the play. You watch the play. I'm like, so that one kind of baffled me. But I mean, my goodness. It was just, it's enough to give us huge excitement rolling into the season. just because it shows us that this offense and defense, both, they can get the job done. Now they just have to do it consistently for 60 minutes. That's what's left. Yeah. So
we know the Steelers on both sides of the ball can execute.
Yeah.
Now they just have to do it in the regular season. There were times last year in the preseason where we were questioning their ability to execute.
Yeah, especially the second two games. They won them both sloppily at the end, especially I know one of them was one at the end, but I know week one was one at the end, but that was a high scoring game. So it's not like it was completely different this year. It was dominating. It was the first unit out there doing what they want. They imposed their will on the other team. It wasn't just, like they pushed them way back off the line of scrimmage with, hey, Steelers pin deep, very first drive. We're facing the third down. Doesn't matter. 30-some yard pass, Deontay Johnson. We're good.
We just had George Pickens doing George Pickens things.
Yes.
Which, by the way, a couple weeks ago, I watched NFL Network, and I heard somebody use that line, and I thought, they took my line.
George Pickens doing George Pickens things.
I busted that out for a knee-jerk reaction, and Dick took my line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I did knee-jerk reaction, when you were gone, let's see, lines I busted out. Both times trying to get Mitch Trubisky to do a little bit more at the offense. It was Mitch better have my money and Mitch don't kill my vibe. Couldn't help it. Rich, you ready? Anything else you want to say about the game? Or I have one more thing.
Okay.
I've got to say this. Got to say it. I can't remember if I've said it on another show or if I typed it or what I've done. So sorry if it's redundant, but isn't it great that when the Steelers force a team to punt, that now you're saying, oh, let's see something happen. Oh, let's make something happen. Uh-oh, better watch out. Rather than saying, dear God, please don't screw it up. Oh, don't screw it up. Please don't screw it up.
Please just
not just with trying to block a kick.
Catch the ball.
Return kick.
Fair catch, please. Fair catch.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'll be honest with you, Calvin Austin doesn't have to bust a 50-yard return every time. I'm just happy that he just explodes up in there and gets 10 to 15 yards. You do that every time. Eventually, one of them you're going to squeeze through and keep going.
Yes.
I just like it for everything that he was doing. Anything else?
This is. I'm going to go ahead and use this to transition this out of that game to the regular season, and that is, we're in the midst of this for the Steelers. Ends up being 2+ week lull between the end of their preseason and their opening game. Okay. The Steelers open at home against the San Francisco 49ers. All I can think of right now was 2 years ago when the Steelers opened in Buffalo and the Bills were to be making the Super Bowl. They were really good. All the talk about the Bills. And what was able to happen when the Steelers had the 2 weeks to prepare the defense to play against the Bills offense?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to
Let me just say
16 points. Is that what they had? Something like that.
I think, yeah. So let me just say this. Mr. Purdy, prepare to get down, Mr. President.
Because that's what's happening.
Yes.
I'm ready for it. Hey, one more tease. Shaner with another one here. Shaner Mayhem Smith says, seems to be over the years that when the Steelers had a good preseason, they didn't have a very good regular season. You know what you need to do, Shaner? You've got to check out our audio-only side of our podcast. Anywhere where you can get podcasts, just search Steelers or Steel Curtain, and you will find us. Subscribe. You'll get them all. Thursday morning, Stat Geek. I talked about it last year. I'll look at it again this year, looking at how the Steelers ended up doing whenever they had a solid preseason record. So record doesn't matter. The record doesn't matter. You just want to play.
The record doesn't matter. And here's why I always say the record doesn't matter. When you're playing first team on first team in the games dead even and you lose the game in the end or win the game in the end with your third and fourth stringers, that means nothing. The Steelers won all 3 of their preseason games this year in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Game was over in the first quarter, every game.
Yep. So, all right, we've got to get to our last question. We are way late, and we're going to fly through this. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to answer. It'll be in the live chat. Remember the rules. Wait till I put it in when it's typed in. Here you go. Going back to our 53-man roster and additional talk. We're going to talk about the future. We like to predict scores here. We're going to talk about the future. Tell me the one player. I'm assuming it's from the Steelers this past preseason, but it wouldn't have to be. Name me one player you want the most on the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad when it's announced tomorrow.
On the practice squad, perfect. Rodney Williams, tight end.
That would have been my answer, so I'll go with another answer.
That guy was just too good when I saw him at training camp, too good when I saw him in the preseason. If the Steelers can hold on to him on the practice squad, they need to.
Love that answer. Love it. I'll give you another one. I'm going to go, people might think it's going a little cheap. I'm going to go Trey Norwood. I don't think his time with the Steelers should be done because I think he could have a spot with them eventually. Here we go. I just put that out there. So now people can type in their response. They might not have had it queued up because we drained this kind of quick because we're running over so bad. Whew. Okay. That's a good one. Afton Ford says Axe Valade. She said that's Zazavian is how you say it. Axe Valade.
Yep.
Okay. Steel Dog 88 says Trey Norwood. I clicked on some way down low. Sorry, it skipped on me. I'll come back to you, Nathan. It's like Steeler Chick 46 said Trey Norwood. Reginald Rivers says David Perales. Nate Van Slyke says Trey Norwood. David Poe says wide receiver Des Fitzpatrick. That's a good one too. There's lots of good. Sorry, Christopher Levin. I'll bring it up, but I don't think it's going to work. He says Fast Willie Parker. Steelers Pittsburgh says running back with the name I can't pronounce. I'm assuming that's Zazavian Valade. If that's not, maybe you can give me a better.
Because I would imagine someone like Greg Bell they could pronounce.
Yeah. Blackjack Novak says Thompson. I guess that's Trenton Thompson, the safety.
Mm-hmm.
George Rice says the Polish linebacker Kwiatkowski or something like that. Yeah. Let's see. Alan, you cheated, but I'll give it anyway. Alan Goddard said Roche or Thompson. Let's see. Gavin Anthony said Kenny Robinson. Said something more there, but there. State of the Steelers says Nick Kwiatkowski, I think is what it is. Brian Brown, I'm not even bringing that up. No, we're not talking about no Scobie debacle here. It's not going to happen. Afton says that she heard his nickname is Axe. I'll take your word for it. I haven't heard that yet, so there we go. Mr. Woodside, he says Trey Norwood. Jacob Heinrich, I missed clicking on that, says Kenny Robinson. Sherry Richards with an interesting one that I think is the good one. Tanner Muse. See if Tanner Muse comes back on the practice squad. Okay, that'll be real interesting. Now, for those of you that are curious, I'm waiting if any more. I like this. I don't know if it's his answer or not, but I'll bring it up anyway. Jerry Cherrybrand says, "Here's to you, Kenny Robinson."
Yeah, I'm sure that's his answer.
Players that were released on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, none of them went on waivers until 4:00 today. So it's not like, they were cut on Saturday. They've already had their 24. No, and it's not even 24 hours. It's only till noon. Teams have till noon tomorrow to make their waiver claims. I just figured there's a good time to explain. Then teams have until 1:00. Oh, no, sorry. The league has till 1:00 to inform teams of who all was claimed. And then teams only have until 6:00 to submit their 16-player practice squad. So you're not going to have to wait forever for it, hopefully, because they got to get it into the league. Okay. Let's see. Did we have another one there? Brian Brown. Brian Brown said, Roche, but it ain't happening. I'm not sure that Roche is going to get claimed. We'll see. He very well could. I wouldn't be shocked if he did. I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't. Okay. So there we go. I think that's really all that we have for the answers.
It is.
So that's good because we're really far over. But hey, make sure go back. You know what? Let's see if I still have it there. Yep, I'm putting it out there for the comments again. Hopefully it doesn't make it go away. That's the link to get into the Survivor League for the signed, sorry if I got quiet, signed Donnie Shell Hall of Fame football to go in there. It's free. Go do that. Also, make sure you're doing the other contest, the contest for FFSN. If you haven't done that, there's really no excuse, anyone. Do the contest. Do the contest. .fansfirstsports.com. Contest.fansfirstsports.com for 4 tickets to any Week 1 NFL game. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're checking out Steel Curtain Network.
Pick the Steelers and take Dave and I.
Yeah, take Dave and I. Or Rich and I. Make sure you're checking out steelcurtainnetwork.com. We're still bringing everything to you. And all of our podcasts. Make sure you're checking them out. Rich, what do you have to close us out here tonight?
You know what? I'm going to close us out with this, okay? We're a future-looking show. I'm going to look forward 1 week. 1 week from tonight, what are we going to be discussing? We're going to be discussing opening weekend for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Enough said. Can't wait.